There's a word that is used in mathematics, and the word is closed, but it means something very different in mathematics as opposed to what we would use it in our daily lives for. So polynomials are closed under three basic operations, and those operations are addition, subtraction, and multiplication. And it's said to be closed under those three operations because when you add, subtract, or multiply polynomials, the answer is always a polynomial. So if you start with a polynomial and you add or subtract or multiply or any combination of those three basic operations, you'll always end up with a polynomial. So that's what it means when you see the word closed in mathematics. It means that you end up with the type of, in this case, expression that you started with. We started with polynomials and we end up with polynomials. So polynomials are closed under addition, subtraction, and multiplication. So we're going to look at these three operations one at a time. Let's look at addition first. So we have these two polynomials that are being added together, and there is no number out in front of the second set of parentheses, but we can assume that it's a positive 1. And if we look at the distributive property and we distribute this 1 to each member that's inside the parentheses, then it's not going to change anything. So we'll end up with plus 5x cubed plus 7x squared minus x minus 1, just as if the parentheses were never there to begin with. So when we're adding polynomials, it's important that we only add like terms. So I'm going to start with the highest degree term, and the highest degree that I see out of these three terms and then the 4 that I just wrote, the highest degree term would be 5x to the third. So I'm going to write that, I'll write it down here at the bottom. So my first, and I don't see any other x to the third terms that I can combine it with, so I'm going to write 5x to the third. And now I'm done with that term. So now I'm going to look for my x squared terms. And I see that I have a 3x squared and I have a positive, always circle the term with the operation sign in front of it. So I have a positive 3x squared and a positive 7x squared. So together that will give me a positive 10x squared. All right, now I look for the next degree down, and I'm done with these, so I'm going to cross these out. The next one that I would have would be my x terms. So first degree, I've got a negative 2x and a negative x, and when I combine, I'm always adding. So negative 2x and a negative x, when I add those two together, I get negative 3x. Right, because it's like a negative 1. Negative 2 plus negative 1 gives me negative 3. And then lastly, I have constant terms. I've got a positive 10 and a negative 1. And when I add positive 10 and negative 1 together, I get positive 9. So this would be my final answer. That's what I would get when I add those two polynomials together. I can't continue, I can't go any further because I don't have any more like terms. So addition is very straightforward. Subtraction is not much harder, actually. There's just one thing that we have to do in the beginning before we start combining like terms. And what we have to do is we have a negative in front of the second set of parentheses now, so we have to look at that as a negative 1 being multiplied by everything that's inside. So we have to distribute that negative first. So when we do that, this second part of our problem is going to become negative 3x squared. Then we have a negative 1 times a negative 2x, which will give us positive 2x. And then a negative 1 times a positive 10 will give us negative 10. So I'm just going to rewrite this beginning part, 5x cubed plus 7x squared minus x minus 1. And now we've already distributed the negative to the second part, so now we just go, like the last problem, and combine like terms. I'm going to look for my highest degree first, and that would be this one. So I've got 5x cubed to start us off. All right, then I'm done with that one. The next one I would look for is if I have any x squared terms, and I do. I have a positive 7x squared and a negative 3x squared. So a positive 7 and a negative 3, when I add those together, I get a positive 4x squared. And now I'm done with those. So now I look for my x terms, and I have a negative x and a positive 2x. I combine like terms by adding those together, and a negative 1 and a positive 2 will give me a positive 1x, so I'll just write plus x. And then I'm done with those. And lastly, I've got my constant terms, a negative 1 and negative 10. We're combining like terms, so we're adding them together, and I get negative 11. Now you may have noticed that at each step when we're combining like terms, we're adding them together, and you might think, but wait, I thought we were subtracting. Well, the subtraction comes in when we do this distributing the negative at the beginning. After we distribute the negative, then it's just a matter of combining like terms, which means we're adding like terms. Just make sure that when you circle the term, or when you look at the term, you also look at the sign in front of the term. That's going to tell you whether it's positive or negative. Okay, let's try another one. So just like the first one on the slide that we did, I'm going to recopy this beginning part. And now for the second part, I have to distribute the negative 1. So negative 1 times negative 4x cubed is going to give me a positive 4x cubed. Negative 1 times positive x is going to give me a negative x. And negative 1 times negative 8 will give me a positive 8. Now I go through and combine like terms. So I start with my highest degree, which is x cubed, third degree. So I have an x cubed, and I have a positive 4x cubed. Add those together, and I get 5x cubed. Oh, again, I see a pattern here, and I'm done with those. All right, now I move on to the next degree down, which would be my x squared term. I have an x squared term here. It's a negative 2x squared. But when I look at the rest of my terms, that's all I've got. I don't have any other x squared terms, so I'm just going to copy that one down. And I'm done with that one. The next degree down would be to look for any x terms, and I do have one of those, x to the first power. It's a negative x. I don't have any other x terms there, so nothing to combine it with, so I just copy it down. And then lastly, I look at my constant terms. I've got a positive 5, a positive 8. I add those together, and I get a positive 13. Cross those out, and I'm done. All right, so that's subtracting. Subtracting is very much like adding polynomials, except that we have to distribute that negative to the second set of parentheses first, and then we're just, again, combining like terms.